sorry about this, Stevie.
It really is the end of the world.
What happened to it?
Judger must have taken it back.
After the convoy. Pretty soon there'll be more of us dead than alive.
Okay, spread out. Look for anything of use.
When Resident Evil Extinction hit theaters in 2007, it marked the third chapter in the high-octane horror franchise inspired by the iconic Capcom video games. The film picked up after the catastrophic events of Resident Evil, Apocalypse, taking the story into a world ravaged by the deadly T-virus unleashed by the Umbrella Corporation. The planet had become a wasteland civilization as we knew it was gone, and the few survivors were constantly on the move, fighting for food, shelter, and survival against the ever-growing hordes of the undead. The story continued to follow Alice, portrayed by Milla Jovovich, who had evolved into something far more than human. Enhanced by the very virus that destroyed the world, Alice became a weapon in her own right, powerful, fast, and unpredictable. Her struggle wasn't just to survive anymore. It was to bring down the Umbrella Corporation and stop the virus from consuming whatever was left of humanity. The film opened with a chilling sense of isolation. The world had dried up, oceans turned to deserts, and once thriving cities were buried under dust and decay. Director Russell Mulcahy crafted this installment with a tone that blended action and post-apocalyptic atmosphere, drawing visual inspiration from westerns and road films. The stark deserts of Nevada became the new battleground, setting it apart from the urban chaos of the previous films. Alice, now wandering alone, had become a myth among survivors. Rumors of a woman who could fight the infected single-handedly spread across the wasteland, giving people a glimmer of hope in an otherwise hopeless world. Yet, even as she helped those in need, she remained haunted by her connection to Umbrella and the experiments that gave her these unnatural powers. Meanwhile, Umbrella Corporation's remnants had gone underground, literally. Their massive facilities were buried beneath the scorched earth, where scientists continued their cold and calculated research. Led by Dr. Isaacs, Umbrella was obsessed with cloning Alice to create a controllable version of her powers. They believed her DNA held the key to reversing or controlling the virus. However, their arrogance and greed only deepened the disaster. As they experimented with countless Alice clones, the world above continued to spiral into chaos. Milla Jovovich's portrayal of Alice in this chapter was more restrained yet powerful. She was no longer just a survivor, but a symbol of humanity's last stand against its own creation. The survivors that Alice encountered included familiar faces like Claire Redfield, played by Ali Larter, who led a convoy of survivors traveling across the desert in search of safety. Their journey was both desperate and inspiring, showing that even in a dying world, people still fought to hold on to hope. The chemistry between Alice and Claire created a strong foundation for the story, balancing the action with emotional depth. Together, they faced endless waves of infected, including the terrifying crows mutated by the T-virus. One of the film's most memorable sequences featured an attack by a swarm of infected crows, where Alice unleashed her telekinetic powers for the first time in full force, an awe-inspiring display that revealed just how powerful she had become. The tone of Resident Evil Extinction was darker and more reflective than its predecessors. It explored the cost of survival, the loss of humanity, and the moral boundaries that had long since vanished. The desert setting amplified this emptiness. The world had become a graveyard of its former self, and every survivor carried the weight of that loss. The film's visual style leaned into warm tones and harsh sunlight, contrasting with the cold, sterile look of Umbrella's underground labs. This visual duality mirrored the battle between life and death, nature and science, chaos and control. The cinematography made the destruction feel beautiful in its own tragic way, giving the film a unique identity within the franchise. Action-wise, Resident Evil: Extinction didn't hold back. The movie delivered explosive sequences, convoy ambushes, zombie battles, and high-stakes fights against mutated creatures, all tied together with Alice's increasing mastery of her powers. Yet beneath the adrenaline-fueled moments was a growing unease. Alice feared that her powers, while useful, might ultimately consume her or make her a weapon for Umbrella's control. This inner conflict added layers to her character, making her more than just an action hero. She became the embodiment of resistance, both human and something beyond. The film managed to balance these intense moments with quieter, emotional beats that reminded viewers what was truly at stake: the remnants of human life itself. Umbrella's presence loomed large throughout the film. Dr. Isaacs, portrayed by Ian Glenn, emerged as a central figure of evil, obsessed with perfecting the Alice clone and controlling the virus, yet blinded by his ambition. His transformation into a monstrous hybrid later in the film symbolized the very corruption and arrogance that had brought the world to ruin. The final confrontation between Alice and Isaacs in the Umbrella facility was both action-packed and symbolic, a fight between creator and creation, between human ambition and the uncontrollable forces it unleashed. The scene's tension, combined with the film's haunting score, made it one of the most iconic moments in the series. By the film's conclusion, Alice discovered the existence of thousands of her own clones being produced by Umbrella. This revelation not only expanded the narrative possibilities, but also reinforced the central theme of identity. Who was the real Alice? Was she just another experiment, or something more, a soul that defied scientific boundaries? The ending set the stage for the next chapter, Resident Evil: Afterlife, by promising a war against Umbrella that would involve an army of Alices. The final scene, where Alice faces her own clones, left audiences in awe and eager for what was to come. It was a bold cliffhanger that blended science fiction, horror, and action in a single, breathtaking moment. The film's success came from its ability to evolve the franchise. Instead of repeating the same formula, Resident Evil: Extinction reinvented the tone and scale, taking the narrative into a new direction. It wasn't just about zombies anymore. It was about the collapse of civilization and the birth of something new in its ashes. The fusion of Western-style survival storytelling with horror elements made it feel fresh and cinematic. The characters felt more grounded, their struggles more human, even as they faced a world filled with unnatural horrors. Alice's journey from a lone survivor to a leader, an eventual symbol of rebellion, gave the film a sense of emotional weight beneath the chaos. In terms of atmosphere, the movie stood out for its haunting landscapes. The deserted Las Vegas sequence, where sand had buried the once vibrant city, became one of the most memorable images in the entire series. It represented both the decay of human civilization and the persistence of nature. Humanity's creations had fallen, but life in some twisted form continued. This post-apocalyptic aesthetic gave the film an almost poetic quality beauty found within destruction. The music by Charlie Clouser amplified this tone, combining industrial beats with eerie ambient sounds that perfectly match the tension and desolation on screen. Resident Evil: Extinction also served as a turning point for the franchise's identity. It shifted the focus from pure horror to a blend of sci-fi and action, setting up the larger war between Alice and Umbrella that would dominate the later films. Milla Jovovich carried the movie with her commanding presence, proving once again that Alice was one of cinema's most iconic female action heroes. Her performance balanced strength with vulnerability, making her both relatable and awe-inspiring. The supporting cast brought their own energy, with Ali Larter's Claire Redfield becoming a fan favorite for her resilience and leadership. Despite being part of a horror action series, Resident Evil Extinction managed to explore deeper questions about humanity's relationship with technology, control, and survival. It showed how far people could fall when power and science are misused, and how even in the ashes of destruction, hope can still flicker. The movie embraced its game-inspired roots, but built something larger, a cinematic universe that blended human emotion with thrilling spectacle. The world of Resident Evil had never looked more desolate, yet somehow more alive. In the end, Resident Evil Extinction stood as a defining chapter in the series' ambitious, stylish, and emotionally charged. It captured the essence of what the franchise had become, a story of evolution, survival, and the fight against unstoppable darkness. It reminded audiences that even when the world ends, the human spirit, no matter how battered or mutated, continues to fight. Through dust, blood, and fire, Alice's journey carried forward, leading humanity toward one last hope. And in that silence of the wasteland, with the desert winds whispering through ruins of the old world, one truth remained: the extinction of humanity was not yet complete, because Alice was still standing.